top 10 tips from history on how you can survive a depression. History is staggeringly significant with regards to enduring something that has happened at some point previously. We realized what not to do during a plague from the Black Death. At the point when economies disintegrate into dust, there are exercises to realize there too. The economy is a precarious thing, and it's defenseless against a wide range of outside dangers, as the ongoing decay of the US financial exchange has demonstrated with the flare-up of COVID-19. Thinking back through history, we can plan and endure insofar as we get familiar with the exercises of the past. 10. Forget about throwing stuff away. In the event that there's one thing we can say about the created world in the 21st century, it's that society has grasped single-use things. That works okay when everything is working out positively. However, the Great Depression instructed individuals to utilize reuse, and reuse everything without exception. It was uncommon for individuals to discard something in those days, and that is a lifestyle that should be grasped again. Consider the last time you tried to bring an apparatus into an auto shop. Been some time, hasn't it? That is generally our flaw, as it's unendingly simpler and just somewhat increasingly costly to supplant our espresso creator once it breaks. Clutch your receipts and guarantees, as you may require them in a brought-down economy. Figuring out how to reuse things is foremost to enduring something like a downturn, so figure out how to sew, so you can line together your torn garments as opposed to discarding them. Figure out how to fix things and reuse bottles you would somehow or another reuse or toss in the garbage. Reusing should be a piece of everybody's lives, and it begins at home. 9. You need to get to know your neighbors. For many individuals on the planet, neighbors are something of a bit of hindsight. You may graciously grin and wave when one passes by in the city or offers a lift ride with you, yet do you truly know them? Would you be able to go to them when you or after all other options have been exhausted for help watching your children? On the off chance that the response to those inquiries is no, you have to fix that as quickly as time permits. During the Great Depression, the Long Depression, and different times of extreme financial logjam, individuals figured out how to work with and depend on each other. A people group of neighbors is a lot more grounded than a solitary individual or family, and individuals discovered that rapidly. Neighborly estrangement is a generally current concern, and when individuals lived in littler networks, they would in general bond with each other, yet that is for the most part a relic of times gone by. At the point where the economy takes a crash, and a few people on your shut are unexpectedly jobless, you should be there to support them. They will do the equivalent should it transpire. In any event, that is the manner by which individuals endure the downturns and miseries of the past, so get over your social nervousness, and draw near to the individuals who are actually nearest to you. 8. Learn a new trade. For most children all through the world, they were asked to answer the inquiry, what would you like to be, the point at which you grow up. Invariably, a youngster would talk a calling, and many would grow up to fill those jobs. For other people, an ability or aptitude may have driven them into another zone of the workforce. However, generally, this implied every individual knew a solitary exchange, and it's what they prepared to do. Tragically, a downturn hits explicit businesses harder than others, and the ones that endure the most are frequently the lower-paid employments. Assuming there is any chance of this happening, you have to become familiar with another exchange. You should have the option to leave your activity you've accomplished for a considerable length of time and be prepared to begin once again in another industry. That is far simpler to state than it is to do. All things considered, we train hard to turn into a teacher, a specialist, an attendant, or any of thousands of various exchanges. Yet whatever your aptitudes, they should be as different as your speculations ought to be. In the event that you ever end up in a position where you have to gain proficiency with another expertise, attempt and discover one that lines up with what you definitely know, and take help any place you can to gain some new useful knowledge. For writers and the prevailing press, we prescribing figuring out how to code or investigating a progressively regarded occupation, for example, a major tobacco or pharma lobbyist. 7. Get to know the difference between need and need. The cutting-edge world offers much in the method for individual amusement, and along these lines, gaming and motion pictures have gotten one of the most gainful enterprises on the planet. At the point when you get directly down to it, a large portion of the diversion we appreciate day by day aren't necessities in our lives. They are things we need instead of the things we need. And it very well may be hard for a significant number of us to distinguish the contrast between the two. All things considered, our diversion isn't something we trifle with. However, needs and needs stretch out past amusement into the greater part of what we expend all through our day-by-day lives. That $5 espresso you can't survive without each morning. It's an ideal opportunity to get a machine so you can blend it at home. Your most solid option is wean yourself off of espresso through and through. In all honesty, it is anything but a need. During a downturn or even a downturn, it's imperative to distinguish these things so you can set aside your cash for the genuine needs throughout everyday life: nourishment, water, sanctuary, apparel, and sanitation. You ought to never exchange any of those for something you don't genuinely require, and that gets perfectly clear in a downturn. 6. Be cautious and be prepared for anything. Probably the most concerning issue individuals looked during the Great Depression was a stamped increment in wrongdoing. Without any place else to turn, individuals everywhere throughout the world picked to take whatever they could to endure, and thus there was a ton of savagery. That isn't to state you have to run out and buy all the firearms so you can take cover in your home and secure your family. It's tied in with keeping you and your friends and family safe during a possibly tempestuous time by getting ready for your well-being. There are huge amounts of ways you can be careful during an emergency, and they don't all require guns. Essentially, drawing near to your neighbors and sorting out a local watch can be all that could possibly be needed to push lawbreakers to look somewhere else. It won't damage to get a pooch if that is something you can manage the cost of and keep in your home, as canines go about as living caution frameworks with negligible preparing. The most significant thing to recall when keeping you and your friends and family safe is that you ought to never travel alone. Continuously work or travel in gatherings, and focus on your environment. 5. Learn the value of discounts and coupons. Coupons are things a great many people underestimate. They shop via the post office or papers, yet most people don't exploit them. That is a pattern that necessitates to reach a conclusion during a brought-down economy. Each penny checks, and in the event that you can spare 20 pennies off a gallon of milk, do it. Clasp those coupons, go to the store, and get those reserve funds. Luckily, there are huge amounts of assets on the web, which make it to some degree superfluous to cut coupons from something that shows up via the post office, and you ought to get acquainted with them in the event that you aren't as of now. Coupons didn't begin during the Great Depression, yet it was that financial occasion that brought about their across-the-board use all through the United States. Thriftiness was something of a work of art in those days, and coupons were an incredible method to offer items to buyers who were edgy for a decent arrangement. The utilization of coupons proceeded after the Great Depression, and they keep on flourishing today. You can discover them on the web while you're holding up in line at a store. You can get them messaged to you, and you can frequently discover them in that spot in the store. 4. Don't let a depression make you depressed. It's a hard life, living through a depression. But that doesn't mean you have to let it get you down all the time. During the Great Depression, people found refuge from their worries in movie theaters. Granted, they were a lot cheaper back then, and you could stay for movies as you wanted for about a nickel, but films remain a great way to escape the harsh reality of life every now and again. Fortunately, we aren't forced to go to a theater to see movies any longer, and just about every home has access to thousands of films and television series at a relatively low cost or no cost at all. Granted, you're not going to want to stay inside all the time, so you should look for little escapes you can take that don't empty your bank account. There are plenty of free options available in most cities, where you can go for a quiet afternoon. City, state, and national parks are a great way to get out and see the world without having to dwell on a bad financial situation. Find the inexpensive activities in your area, and make a day of it with the family. It's far better than brooding at home all day, and it's good for your health as well. 3. Grow your own food. This one appears to be somewhat self-evident, and keeping in mind that it isn't workable for everybody, seeing as many individuals live in urban areas absent a lot of land. The individuals who can develop their nourishment completely should. Developing your nourishment gives you an additional layer of sustenance security, so you don't need to fundamentally stress over what will be on the supper table when you realize you can gather some corn in the lawn. Planting your own harvests on even a little plot of land can help spare a pack, and there are various herbs you can develop inside close to a window. In any event, for individuals who don't have land to plant their own yields, there are network gardens accessible in numerous civil regions you can exploit. In the event that circumstances are extremely difficult, you can bunch with your neighbors to lease a space for such a reason. During the Great Depression, numerous urban communities permitted residents to cultivate empty parts, so that might be a choice should things get terrible again. In the event that you don't have the foggiest idea how to plant and tend harvests, there are a lot of aids on the web. And in case you're into some old tech, head to your neighborhood library and read a book on the most proficient method to do it. 2. Focus on the family. The most significant thing everybody needs to recall during a downturn is that the family starts things out. Regardless of what your identity is or where you fit inside your family structure, you have to pay special mind to yourself and the ones you love. In the event that there was one thing that helped families overcome the Great Depression, it was the closeness of each other. There wasn't a lot of families could go to for help and backing, so they depended on each other. On the off chance that one parent could work, the other would deal with the home, and if both expected to work, the most seasoned youngster would watch the more youthful ones. Whatever should be possible to help each other, the families met up to get it going. In our cutting-edge world, where families are separated in various states and nations, being close with each other isn't as simple as it used to be. Assuming there is any chance of this happening, attempt to change this, and take an exercise from history. Help each other out, play tabletop games, read to each other, or take the necessary steps to traverse the awful economy. And realize that if history has shown us anything, discouragement, it's that they in the long run reach a conclusion. 1. Forget everything you know about modern society. Disregard all that you think about society. On the off chance that the business sectors genuinely collide with sadness levels, you won't consider internet-based life, or governmental issues, or carbon credits and environmental change. You will consider where your next supper is going to originate from. You will consider how to fix the last pair of shoes you had the option to manage, unfixable Nikes from a Chinese sweatshop most likely. I know this sounds somber. However, it is the truth of a Great Depression, and it needs to shading your reasoning and planning. All the exhortation on this rundown is acceptable, yet The most significant counsel of everything is you have to understand that a downturn will cause an entirely different world that will scarcely take after anything you have known previously, except if you originate from an underdeveloped country with critical neediness. Without a doubt, the rich celebs will even now be on Twitter telling everybody the amount they give it a second thought and need to help. Be that as it may, they won't. A Great Depression will positively pull the shade back on Veru flagging. Since ideals signals don't fill hungry guts,